We build our lives as a series of fortifications, more wealth, more objects, a relentless, breathless sprint toward a horizon of absolute perfection that always seems to recede just as we reach it. We try to treat the exhaustion with minor distractions, a quick cup of tea in the morning, swallowed down before the commute, a simple daily refreshment. But in 15th century Japan, this exact same liquid was elevated into a religion of aestheticism. It became known as Teaism. In his definitive text, The Book of Tea, Okakura Kakuzo documented the profound psychology underlying this practice. He detailed a philosophy acting as a direct counterweight to grandiosity. Teaism is the deliberate worship of the imperfect, the mundane, the empty, and it is housed within a highly specific, fragile structure known as the sukiya. By stepping inside a 10-foot square cottage built of straw and bamboo, we find the precise antidote to a society burning itself to the ground. The transition into this space is physical, but its purpose is entirely psychological. You first walk the roji, a garden path designed to sever your connection from the dust and din of the outside world. The legendary 16th century tea master, Sen no Rikyu, once tasked his son with preparing this very path for arriving guests. The young man washed the steps 3 times, he scrubbed the stone lanterns, he watered the moss until it shone, removing every last twig and dead leaf. He achieved total, pristine cleanliness. Rikyu inspected the path, called his son a fool, and stepped into the garden. He grabbed the trunk of a tree and shook it, scattering dead, crimson autumn leaves across the wet stones. Absolute sterile perfection leaves no room for life. True spiritual preparation requires the deliberate inclusion of nature's unpredictable decay. At the end of that path stands the tea room. The entrance is a small door, intentionally built no more than 3 feet high. This architecture enforces a strict sociological leveling. To enter, every guest, even the highest-ranking samurai, must leave their weapons outside on a rack and physically bow low to the earth. You cannot bring your ego through the frame. Once inside, you are enclosed in a space scarcely 10 feet square. There is no grand furniture, no permanent ornamentation. To understand this barrenness, you have to look to the ancient Taoist concept of the vacuum. The true utility of a water pitcher does not dwell in the clay it is made from, but in the empty space where the water can actually be held. The tea room operates on the exact same physics. The room is constructed as a deliberate vacuum. It is left entirely vacant so that it can be filled by the minds and the presence of the people gathered inside it. This reflects a core tenet of Zen practice. The external surroundings are minimized so the internal light can be recognized. Mastery over an environment is not achieved by crowding it with wealth or noise. It is achieved by carving out a quiet void where authentic human connection has the oxygen to breathe. You will notice this runs counter to classical design. In Western and early classical architecture, grandeur is communicated through rigid, mirrored symmetry. Teaism actively rejects this uniformity. To the tea master, symmetry dictates completion, and a thing that is complete has nowhere left to grow. It is essentially dead. Inside the tea room, you will not find a single repeated shape or color. If the boiling kettle is round, the water pitcher placed next to it must be angular. A black glaze cup is never paired with a black lacquer caddy. By leaving a composition technically unfinished, the space demands that the viewer's own imagination step in to complete the picture. Asymmetry forces you to participate. Imperfection ceases to be a flaw, becoming instead a sign of vitality, a continuous, living dialogue between the mind and the object. There is an old fable about a stubborn, magical harp that refused to play for any of the emperor's musicians. Finally, a master named Peiwo sat before it and drew out a brilliant symphony. When asked how he succeeded where others failed, Peiwo explained that the other musicians had only played songs about themselves. He simply silenced his own ego, leaving the harp to choose its own theme. We rarely extend this courtesy to the world around us. In modern society, we routinely sever thousands of flowers from the earth, wiring and burning them into massive, opulent arrangements just to decorate a single evening's banquet before throwing them onto the ash heap. the tea master takes a different approach. They carefully select one single meaningful spray, placing it thoughtfully on the altar to speak for the entirety of nature. True appreciation of beauty demands a quiet reverence. It requires the restraint to listen to the world, rather than the loud, desperate urge to consume and dominate it. It all returns to a small, quiet room and a solitary, imperfect bowl of tea. The old masters understood the brutal reality of existence. Life is an impossible, fleeting condition. It cannot be hoarded, and it cannot be wrestled into a state of permanent perfection. Our strength does not come from the things we accumulate. It comes from curating our focus, accepting the ephemeral, and finding harmony in the simple, passing moments we are given.